Today I'm going to be ranking every single Spider-Man movie, from Sam Raimi's films to Tom Holland's films, Spider-Verse, Venom. I'm going to be ranking all films. There'll be 11 in total. And just so you know, I've rewatched all these movies like this December. This isn't just purely nostalgia speaking, like I've seen them just like the last few weeks. This is all fresh on my mind. If you like this content, be sure to leave a comment. I want to know what your list on how you'd rate the Spider-Man movies is, or just even subscribe. Alright, we're going to rank the movies from worst to best. We're going to start at the bottom, then we're going to get to the top. But without further ado, let's get into it. Number 11, Venom, Let There Be Carnage. To start things off, this movie is too damn short. It's only 97 minutes long. It's shorter than the other Venom movie, and I think most of the other movies on this list. Everything happens with no explanation, and it happens so quickly. When the Carnage symbiote gets on to Cletus Cassidy, he's just well, I guess the symbiote passed on. They don't go through the whole pregnancy of what a symbiote is. At one point, Carnage just hacks the computer and gets into the Polita database. It's just that, there's not any real explanation given for how things happen, because it just goes so quick. And on top of that, there's this confidence move between Eddie Brock and Venom, because Venom wants to go out and kill people, and Eddie wants to just chill. And, the way they handle that conflict, it just feels so not deep, and, there's all this small plot issues. I don't want to talk about it too much, because it's not really that interesting a film, but it could just be a lot better. No, but seriously, at one point, Eddie and Venom, they separate. And Eddie pretty much figures out there's a guy with a Venom symbiote out. And he doesn't even think for a moment, oh my goodness, is this Venom? He just kind of instantly knows it's just another symbiote. And just I think the movie is funny, but I don't think the plot's very good. And I don't think it does the Venom story justice. It just happens too quickly, and, the plot points are just super weak. So sadly, I gotta put it at the bottom. Number 10, Venom. I hate to put both the Venom movies at the bottom, and it's not like I hate this movie, but it still just isn't that good. They both fundamentally have the same problem. They're both funny movies, but I feel like these aren't good Venom stories. Just so you guys know, I'm not a comic book reader. I've never actually read a Spider-Man comic, but I'm aware of the things that happen in the comics, and I've seen a lot of the cartoons, so I'm still a proper Spider-Man fan. But the way Venom's supposed to work is the symbiote essentially feeds on the negative energy of their host. And in this movie, when Eddie and Venom team up and they're fused together, they don't really get into how he was so compatible because of all his depression. They just kind of say, well, I guess he's compatible. For years before it was even, I don't even remember if these were rumors or just soft confirmations, but this was supposed to be the R-rated Venom film. Hollywood's working on an R-rated Venom film. It's gonna be great. And the thing is, this movie ended up being PG-13. Throughout this movie, Venom is biting people's heads off, but there's no blood at all. There's no sense of gore. And a lot of times they kind of just play it off for comedy, oh my God, we just bit that dude's head off. I'm yeah, this is funny, but I kind of want something different from a Venom story. Number 9, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Even though it's pretty low on this list, I still like this movie. Andrew Garfield is a great Spider-Man. I think he's phenomenal. I know this movie wasn't that good, but seeing how much money they made and how good Andrew was as Spider-Man, I think they should have made an Amazing Spider-Man 3. So this is the first Amazing Spider-Man movie on the list. I can talk in general what makes these movies good. I think Andrew Garfield was the only live action Spider-Man to do the funny thing right. Spider-Man, if you read the comics or watch the cartoons, he's always talking smack when he's fighting out the bad guys. I feel Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man is painfully not funny. I think Tom Holland, he's not funny either, but I think Andrew Garfield, he was super funny, man. That scene when they blast Electro with the fireman, he's just got that hat on. He's funny, he's hilarious, and there's still a lot of that in this movie. Even the Peter Parker stuff, I think, is done very good. Aunt May's scene when he's saying you're my boy, which is why she doesn't want to tell Peter Parker about his parents, or when Peter goes to see Harry Osborn and he said, when my father left me, you were there for me and it was hard for me, and now that your father's gone, I want to be there for you. That means something to me. The emotional highs of this movie mean a lot to me. However, the emotional highs aren't quite enough to say this movie, because I think the movie falls apart at its villains. Electro and the Green Goblin. Electro, I'm not gonna lie, Jamie Foxx, before he turned evil in this movie, I was dying every time he was on screen. The first time, he was okay. After that, I'm just get me out, bro. It's just really not funny, and I hate to use this word, but a lot of the jokes were kind of cringe. I felt his reason for turning evil just wasn't very good, but still, I could have maybe forgiven that, but I can't forgive how Harry Osborn turned into the Green Goblin the last 5 minutes of the movie. He just injects the venom in him, and then his skin starts changing, and then he gets on the glider. Also disappointed when you get an Amazing Spider-Man 3, because they introduced Felicia Hardy in this movie, and she was gonna be Black Cat, but you live and you learn. Even though it's on my list, I feel this still was a good Spider-Man. So they had the depression there. They had, Peter Parker swinging through New York as Spider-Man. It was really good, but it does have its flaws, sadly. Number 8, Spider-Man Homecoming. Okay, right off the bat, I do not respect this movie. Like, I know I put it higher than The Amazing Spider-Man, but like, The Amazing Spider-Man, it had such higher highs for me. But the thing is, like, a lot of that movie is just kind of terrible. And like, this movie is very consistently decent or at times good. I think it fails at being a Spider-Man story. Peter Parker's motivation in this is just like, man, I want to be the Avenger so bad. Like, there's a scene where like his friends like, are you gonna drop out of school? It's like, I don't care about being a high school dropout because, you know, I could be an Avenger. Like, I can't imagine Peter Parker ever saying that. Homecoming misses like the core sadness of like a Spider-Man story, the depression. Like, it kind of seems like he's just doing things. Like, no, he's like a nice guy, but like, that's really it. I don't think there's much depth to Tom Holland as Spider-Man in this movie. And like, there's no like swing throughout New York. Cause like in, you know, all the Spider-Man movies, you always see him like swinging around New York and like the scenes are just super cool and like fun. But in this movie, in one point of the movie, he doesn't even swing to get the bad guys. He takes Flash Thompson's car and he just drives over. I'm like, and yeah, that was definitely funny, but like, it felt so un-Spider-Man-like. So even though I don't think it's good as a Spider-Man story, I think it was still a decent MCU movie. I still laughed. I just didn't have a lot of respect. So I felt like this was a very easy movie to make. Spider-Man 3 gets too much hate. Spider-Man 3 is a good movie. I think the best part of this movie is Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker. Not even Spider-Man, like the Peter Parker stuff. Seeing like Peter trying to, you know, balance school and work and his girlfriend. And he seems to be, for once in his life, he seems to like balancing everything great. But like seeing things of like, things are kind of like supposed to finally be going well for him and like they're just falling apart. I'm not gonna lie though, Peter was feeling himself too much. That scene during the Spider-Man parade when Peter as Spider-Man kissed Gwen Stacy just to hype up the crowd, I'm like, bro, your girlfriend is right there. You're ready to engage. Like, you can't, I don't think that was the wise thing to do. I don't think that shows very good on his character. But apart from that, seeing like when he gets a symbiote, seeing his negativity be amplified, I feel like those are good scenes. Like, but also a lot of what's happening isn't really his fault. As far as like all that weird dancing stuff goes and, you know, the emo hair, that was amazing. I don't care what anyone says, that was amazing. I will, once again, not lie and say they did push it a little bit too far at that scene at Mary Jane's Jazz Club or whatever. That was like, I have no idea what that was. That was honestly terrible. I loved it, but I don't respect it at all. The real big flaws in these movies are the villains. Venom was like thrown into like the last 15 minutes of the movie. He looked terrible. I didn't like it at all. Sandman as well. In this timeline, they make Sandman Uncle Ben's killer, which I'm honestly not a fan of, just because it reminded me of like I didn't remember which Batman this was, but like in the old Batman movies when they say this movie, so the Joker killed Batman's parents instead of Joe Chill, who actually killed them. It kind of puts unnecessary importance onto a character, and like, you know, as a fan, like it kind of like rubs me the wrong way, kind of seeing them like change established lore just to make this character seem more important than they actually are. But you know, I can forgive it though, because that scene when the Sandman explains what happened to his Uncle Ben, and at the end Peter just says, I forgive you, when he absolutely did not have to, like, I thought that was really cool. And Harry Osborn as Green Goblin, he's very much okay, but like some wacky things happen when he like very instantly like loses his memory and wakes up like, my dad's dead, right? Hey Peter, what's up, my best friend? And so I kind of like how that just happened, but it wasn't terrible. The Spider-Man stories, they always depend on how good is the Spider-Man content and how good is the Peter Parker content. At least, well, not always, but like, it's very good to do those things well. And I think the Peter Parker stuff in this movie was really good. Number 6, The Amazing Spider-Man. Honestly, there's not too much for me to say about this movie. I covered it already when I mentioned The Amazing Spider-Man 2, but I think this is a good Spider-Man movie. It had my favorite versions of like Uncle Ben or even Flash Thompson. I like them talking about Peter Parker's parents, because 99% of Spider-Man fans probably don't know shit about Peter Parker's parents. And I like it because it was different. It wasn't necessarily good, but different can feel better because if you've seen something too many times, you get bored of it even if it's good. Also, I think Andrew Garfield was a good Peter Parker and a good Spider-Man. I heard some people say that he wasn't that good. And to be honest, like when I heard that he was going to become Spider-Man, I'm like, this man too goddamn good looking. It's just not going to work. But I thought he played like a nerdy Peter Parker well. And I think in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, he was significantly more competent. I don't think he made as good a Peter Parker in the second film. You know, in this first film, like, I like him a lot. As far as Dr. Connors and the Lizard go as a villain, I thought it was very okay. Like, that's probably the weakest thing in this movie. Like, wasn't necessarily a bad villain, not necessarily a good villain. Number 5, Spider-Man No Way Home. Spoilers if you have not seen this movie yet. As far as all the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies go, this is the only one that does a Spider-Man story well. Not to say the other ones aren't good in their own rights, but like there was a lot of depression and sadness in this movie, which I feel like the other ones in the trilogy just kind of didn't really get right. But this one, it's sad. Tom is like violent. He's angry. It's a pretty good movie. Having the villains come back was great. I feel like having Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin, Willem Dafoe as the main villain to come back, amazing because like I think the Green Goblin is the best Spider-Man villain that we've seen in all these movies. So him coming back and being like that real enemy, I felt that was really good. It was great fan service seeing all the old Spider-Man villains again, seeing them talk and interact with each other. But the reason why I put this movie at this spot and not higher is because even though the fan service was good, there's like a lot of like awkward humor, and like the first half, or maybe like the first third of the movie, it doesn't really get going for a while. There's like a lot of like MCU jokes that just kind of like cram in there. I'm just like, really? You said the thing, but it's like, it doesn't feel right. Even though a lot of the villains came back, I don't think Sandman was that interesting a villain. Electro was one of the worst parts of the Amazing Spider-Man 2. Also, seeing Tobey and Andrew come back and seeing all the Spider-Man just like talk with each other and do science together, that was so fucking cool, man. Oh my god, like it was incredible. Like that was fan service done right. Seeing them all be together, like even like when they're fighting and they're like, yo, we're not gonna work as a team. I'm like, yes, exactly. Because Spider-Man doesn't really work in a team. He works by himself. So seeing all of them kind of be like, we're not very good at this, I'm like, this is so accurate. Also, this is rare, but I think bringing back these characters, it doesn't ruin the legacy. A lot of things people have against sequels is like, maybe they should just end it here. I don't want to ruin the legacy of this character or like this story, but like, I don't think it did that. The ending where everyone forgets who Peter Parker is, I feel like that was truly amazing because when he goes to see MJ, he sees like, like the Band-Aid on her face and like, he doesn't say it, but it's very obvious that like, he doesn't want to get her involved in all of this again because she could get hurt. So he, moves out essentially. He finds a place and like, honestly, it hurt me like when I saw his box of stuff. One of them had like a GED book in it, and I'm like, Peter Parker's a fucking brilliant person, bro. The idea that he's not gonna finish high school, not gonna go to MIT or any of these like big places, that hurts me. He's got like a police radio in his room, and like he's making his own costume, and like he's still going out to be Spider-Man. I feel like this is amazing. I think the next Spider-Man movie is gonna be better than this. Like I feel like some people say, no, this should be like way higher up on the list. I feel like this was good, but like this is truly only the beginning. I truly think the next Spider-Man movie, as long as they can keep that core depression with Peter Parker, is gonna be amazing. Okay, I gotta stop talking about this. I can go on and on forever about this movie. It's really good, but moving on to the next one. Number 4, Spider-Man Far From Home. Far From Home isn't a great Spider-Man story, but it's a great MCU movie. Like, I think it just kind of like does the MCU thing really good. Like, there's jokes all the time, it's funny, supporting cast is great. I think Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio is great. Those Mysterio sections when like he's like mind fucking Peter Parker, I think they're really good as well. And I was just laughing and enjoying myself this entire movie. So even though it's not depressing, it doesn't do all the Spider-Man stuff right. His Spider-Sense isn't in it from the start. I feel like that was an advantage to this movie because, now he has that whole scene of like getting it together. If you enjoy a movie, that's the most important thing at the end of the day, even if it's not perfect. And that's how I feel about this movie. Number 3, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Stylistically, it may be number 1 or number 3 in a lot of people's books. In my opinion, it's never going to be number 2. So if I make this as another year, this could be number 1 on the list, just to let you know. Black Spider-Man movie. He's also half Hispanic too, but no one cares about that. He's just the Black Spider-Man. I think this movie does what No Way Home tried to do, but better. Spider-Man fan service. I think what No Way Home did with all the Spider-Man was really cool. We got a lot of fan service and it was great, but I feel like that's like more like live action Spider-Man fan service. This is just like Spider-Man fan service. Like that scene at the start of the movie when like, he's doing the Spider-Man 3 walk, the after credits scene where it's like, it's like the look at me meme. Apart from even the fan service, I feel like this is like an emotional tale with like Miles kind of like being thrown into like this Spider-Man thing. He's not really good at it. This movie is hella self-aware, especially like I think Peter B. Parker was like my favorite character in this movie because like he's been Spider-Man older than like most of the Spider-Mans we've ever seen, and like he just kind of like is done with it all, knows how to do things, and like explains the formula of like how being Spider-Man works. And he's great, he's really funny, but he's still like depressing in his own right. I feel like that's probably why I have to put this down as number 3 because like I think Peter B. Parker steals the show, and Miles Morales as a character, I don't know too much about him in comics, but at least in this movie as a character, he's not bad, but I think the best Spider-Man stories are always going to start Peter Parker. Because I think Peter Parker is just a better character than Miles. Also, something I had to bring out is like, man, John Mulaney, who's like one of my favorite comedians, voiced Peter Parker, the Spider-Ham. I thought everything he said was funny. He didn't make things too cheesy, because this is a very funny movie, and I just thought he was good. So shout out to the comic relief. The music in this movie is really good. The art style is really good. In conclusion, Into the Spider-Verse, great movie. Don't sleep on animation. Number 2, Spider-Man. I adored this movie. People act like Spider-Man 2, oh, it's clearly like the best Spider-Man movie, like by a large margin, but Spider-Man 1 is also really freaking good. I think the story is so emotional, even though I think the early parts in the movie when Peter Parker is, you know, like kind of figuring out the Spider-Man stuff, it's not as good, but like it still felt a lot of emotion. Like when he graduated high school and he's just sitting on his bed thinking about how, you know, today's like this, I really miss Uncle Ben. Oh my god, bro. It's beautiful. You know, him trying to work up the courage to, like, you know, talk to Mary Jane, who he's been in love with for years but hasn't said anything to. That's something I didn't really like about, like, the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. Like, there's not a lot of emotion in them until, like, the third movie. And there's no Uncle Ben in it. He already came pre-dead. And, like, I know some people may have been happy, like, oh, good, I don't want to see Uncle Ben die again. But it's like, I think that kind of thing is important to a Spider-Man story. It always comes from him being cocky, feeling himself, and then his negligence resulting in his loved one dying. And this movie did it great. Also, it starred the Green Goblin, which I've said before, he's the best Spider-Man villain in all these movies. Even the Norman Osborn stuff of, like, you know, him going back and forth, like, talking to the Green Goblin in the mirror with, like, the frigged up teeth. Norman Osborn isn't really shown to be a great guy or father throughout the movie, because, you know, like, he influenced his son, like, Harry Osborn, James Franco, like, pretty negatively. I like the scene where he talks to his son, he's talking about how, I haven't always been there for you, and like, it sounds like, it's okay, Dad, you're busy, I understand. And then he says, that's no excuse. Kind of like showing that this is, even though he's a bad guy, before like that chemical gas leak or whatever, he was a normal person, like a father, like him understanding how important his son is to him. And like, I know he does a bunch of stuff trying to like kill for the sake of his son afterwards, kind of messed up, but I thought he did a great job. I think Willem Dafoe is absolutely phenomenal as the Green Goblin, steals the show. Well, he would have stolen the show, but Tobey Maguire, I'm not gonna act like he got completely outclassed. Like both these two, they do what they do in this movie very, very good. Except, you know, Tobey's not really funny as Spider-Man. Like, they should have wrote some better jokes for the Spider-Man, but it was still an amazing movie. The only reason I put this movie as number 2 is because, like I said, the early stuff in the movie isn't good. That fight scene with Flash Thompson was bad, in my opinion. I thought it was terrible, like, seeing some of the earlier CGI, like, when he's on the roof looking for Uncle Ben's killer. It just wasn't good at all. And I feel like when the movie gets going, I think it gets going good, but, you know, those earlier parts I can't deny. And the way the movie ends is beautiful because, you know, Mary Jane kind of like fell in love with Spider-Man even though she's dating Harry Osborn. And like when she was going to die, because she's always in danger in all these movies, when she was going to die, she was saying, you know, even though I was with Spider-Man, I was thinking, I really hope I get to see Peter Parker again. And she kisses him. And Peter wants her more than anything in this world, but pretty much says, you know, he can't do this because he doesn't want to put her at risk. And that's fucking beautiful because that's what a Spider-Man story is about. Number 1, Spider-Man 2. Alright, you guys all knew this was coming. Spider-Man 2, it's a really good movie. I think Spider-Man 2 is a good movie because I feel like this makes me feel like I understand Spider-Man the most. Like, I feel like we see Peter Parker, you know, he's strong to hold down a job because he keeps having to leave because of Spider-Man stuff. You know, Mary Jane, who even though they're not dating, he can't make any of her shows or support her because, you know, he's busy doing Spider-Man stuff. He's kind of like poor in this movie as well. And because of like Peter Parker's presumed relationship with Spider-Man, his best friend, Harry, hates him because he's saying, you know, you're friends with a man who killed my father. It was like, you're no friend, you're no brother to me. And everything just kind of going shitty for Spider-Man, especially when he sees like Mary Jane's marrying somebody else. The part of the movie where his powers don't work and essentially he quits being Spider-Man, everything's supposed to be going good for him now, but like, you know, his relationship with Mary Jane, it's still very strange because they haven't even started yet. Him and Harry still aren't good either, and, you know, he's not really happy not being Spider-Man because he's still a good person. He still wants to help people out. And, you know, seeing him return to being Spider-Man because, like, crime is on the rise in New York, that train scene is very iconic. I thought it was good, but also, like, when they carry him, like, you're careful with him. He's a hero, and he doesn't have his mask on, and all those citizens kind of tell him, like, it's okay, we won't tell anyone who you are. New York has Spider-Man's back, and Spider-Man has New York's back. I thought it was truly phenomenal. There's just, I can go on and on forever about all these movies, but like I'm not sure how long this video is gonna be, but like right now, I'm 45 minutes on the clock talking about this. I'll probably have to cut a lot out. It's just good, man. But yeah, those are my rankings for all the 11 Spider-Man films. If you disagree, let me know in the comments. Like, I'm genuinely curious to what you want to see. And I'm Lee T. Simba. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.